Hello again, and thanks for joining us for this this Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 17th day of May 2022. I'm David Percy. Up first, we've got the river breakup map, and Tanana River now completely open right on down to the where it joins up the Yukon River there at Tanana. And the Yukon River, quite a stretch there of mostly open. And then around Ruby or Caltech, somewhere in there, it becomes some open, and then on down farther, it's areas of mostly ice until you hit the delta. Then it's got areas of some too mostly open right on out to the coastline. Kuskokwim River still has a little bit of ice on it there on the north part, or in the central areas. And the Koyukuk River is mostly open, as well as the Porcupine River mostly open. And the Noatak River has some open stretches there, as you can see right on down from Noatak on down. And then the Kobuk River, mostly ice still. And then the North Slope Rivers, Colville mostly ice, the Kaparik River mostly ice, but the Sag River there starting to show some signs of breakup with kind of some open area there on the north slope of the Alaska Range. And from there, moving on to fire danger, we've got some areas of higher fire danger now starting to show up, especially there, Dillingham and northern Bristol Bay, west of Iliamna Lake, zone of higher fire danger, and also in the northwestern Susitna Valley up toward the Alaskan Range, or in there's also a zone of higher fire danger showing up there. So that's probably just the start, and that'll probably see some areas increase here over the next 5 to 7 days, even up in the interior. And from there, looking at the hazardous weather graphics, there are no advisories, watches, or warnings out anywhere in the state for the next day or so, maybe longer, as no big storms really affecting the area. Got low pressure circulating in the southern Gulf of Alaska. That's sending some moisture up in the form of a frontal boundary there up toward the south coast of the Panhandle, bringing some rain and gusty winds with it there, and some lighter precipitation all the way up into the Juneau area there, and areas east of Yakutat, very light. And still a lot of clouds over the eastern interior, upper Tanana Valley from the Yukon River there all the way down to the Gulf of Alaska, and some rainfall amounts in there as well. For example, Northway and Tok picking up about 0.2 of an inch of precipitation, as well as Cordova picking up about 1/4 of an inch during the day today. And a lot of sunshine, though, to the west there, south central Alaska, and much of the western interior from actually around southern Kobuk Valley southward all the way to Bristol Bay, seeing lots of sunshine today, and a frontal boundary out on the west side of a big ridge that's holding it back to the west, but the entire pattern starting to shift eastward now, so that allowed the rainfall to get into the western Aleutians, but it's on the light side, and winds aren't much of a factor with that. And then some grazing systems there, or some clouds grazing the Arctic coast, a couple of weak troughs there, and a few skiffs of snow both on the west and east side of the Arctic coast today. Very light, more of a flurry with some fog type of condition there, all the way down to about Point Lay, but nothing significant. But temperatures on the chilly side in the teens into at least midday today. On the chart, you can see the areas of low clouds and fog with that, but high pressure at the surface, so the precipitation mostly due to systems aloft moving from west to east there, coming over the top of that Bering Sea high, shearing off from the warm front, that moisture there, and narrow band of rainfall with that front over the western Bering Sea down to Shimei and Attu, but not quite making it much farther to the east. There's a light wind pattern over the southern Bering Sea, Adak, Atka, Fox Islands, Pribilof, so as as well as the St. Lawrence Island area. Winds a little gusty along the southwest coast there, a little bit more of a gradient, and seeing winds gusting 25, maybe up to 35 miles an hour, like Cape Lisburne, Cape Lisburne, one of the normally windier areas out there, and a little breezy along the Alaska Peninsula, but nothing serious. Sunshine, Kodiak Island, some scattered shower activity developing along the Alaska Range this afternoon. But as of mid-afternoon, no lightning strikes in any of those showers, and some of that up along the upper Yukon River there to Eagle. But the bulk of the moisture in Canada, with some of that spilling, as I mentioned, into the eastern Alaska Range areas and to the north, with wetting rains from North Wyandotte down to Cordova and into the Copper River Basin there. Panhandle, Cape Decision, seeing winds gusting to 40 miles an hour, that approaching front there. Rainfall amounts, Heidelberg picked up 2/3 of an inch during the day today. A little farther to the north, Petersburg, light rain, 1,500ths there. And a shower at Juneau earlier today brought 1/100th of an inch, so definitely the heavier weather to the south and better conditions up to the north. Forecast for tonight, that system slides by to the south, heads right into Vancouver Island, taking a heavy wind and rain with it. So just lingering showers and a diminishing pattern across the southern panhandle tonight, with high pressure building in over Burwash and Destruction Bay in that area. Still some lingering showers, Prince William Sound, Passage Canal, northeastward there toward Eagle, and across the Copper River Basin area, but clearing skies, becoming fair with light winds over much interior Alaska. Bering Sea, light winds, high pressure there holding that front back to the west, and the rain not even making Kiska Island there, but enough light wind pattern there to allow low clouds, fog, maybe some areas of drizzle anywhere over the Bering Sea, especially over the southern Bering, areas of fog possible, northern Bering Sea through the Strait and along the Arctic coast, as most of those flurries shift off into Mackenzie River Delta and Bay. For Wednesday, more sunshine, warmer afternoon temperatures across just about all of interior Alaska, from the North Slope all the way down to Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, and the North Gulf Coast, starting a warming trend anyway, as that high center slips a little farther to the east with the warmer air aloft. Should be a dry day for the Panhandle, mostly cloudy with the risk of a shower early on, especially the southern southeast coast, with the remainder of the area there partly to mostly sunny. Central northern Panhandle, mostly sunny day for the North Gulf Coast, and still chance of showers eastern Alaska Range and the upper Tanana Valley to about Eagle and into the northeast Copper River Basin, and a frontal boundary out there not making it too far to the east, and some moisture coming very close to the western Arctic coast, and that'll increase and cover much of the Arctic coast on Thursday with a little bit of moisture there, light moisture with low clouds, fog, lower, reducing definitely visibilities there and ceilings. But high pressure now dominating, especially aloft and at the surface, dominating mainland Alaska as it shifts in from the Bering Sea. And that's allowing the system to come up from the south and start to graze the eastern Aleutians with a little bit chance of some light rain and pick up in the winds. And then the system out to the west there, really not making much eastward progress at all. Mostly sunny day for the Panhandle, and low temperatures for tonight, or for Wednesday morning, in the teens to lower 20s, or mostly in the teens, North Slope in the Arctic coast, 30s in the central interior, upper 30s to lower 40s, southern Alaska, and the Panhandle, same thing, 30s to lower 40s. Highs tomorrow for the southeast coast, upper 50s to lower 60s. Upper 50s to lower 60s also for the Susitna Valley, inland areas of the Kenai Peninsula, pushing 60 in the Copper River Basin and the Kuskokwim Valley. Mid to upper 50s, central interior, upper 20s to lower 30s from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast, and 40s for the Aleutians, northern Bering Sea in the upper 30s. And Thursday morning lows in the 20s from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast and the northwest part of the state, Noatak Valley, Kotzebue, Seward Peninsula. Otherwise in the upper 20s to and 30s from the remainder of central Alaska, southern Alaska, lower 40s again, lower 40s for the Panhandle, and upper 30s for the Aleutians, followed by highs Thursday afternoon well into the 60s now. In fact, call it 65 to 70 for the Kuskokwim Valley out into the Kuskokwim Delta away from the coastline, and upper 60s, 67 the forecast high for king salmon. And look at the 60s now in south central Alaska, 65 to 70 the highs in the Susitna Valley, and definitely in the 60s in the central interior Tanana Valley as well as the southeast coast. And that's kind of starting a warming trend. It'll even be a little warmer for Friday afternoon, possibly Saturday as well. Probably seeing some 70s showing up by that time. Otherwise, lower to mid-30s for the Arctic coast and North Slope.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Huge area of IFR out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians tomorrow morning, and a smaller area up over the Brooks Range on out to the central eastern Beaufort Arctic coast and North Slope. VFR south of the Brooks Range, marginal VFR southeast interior from the Yukon River right on down into Prince William Sound, and the southern three-quarters of the Panhandle, marginal VFR. Otherwise, Kodiak Island, Cook Inlet, Bristol Bay, on up to the Yukon River, VFR, actually up to the Kobuk-Koyukuk valleys and the northwest coast. And for the afternoon, VFR interior Alaska, still some areas of marginal VFR, central eastern Alaska Range, upper Tanana Valley to Eagle, southward into the Wrangell Mountains, and also the eastern Brooks Range, some marginal VFR. Otherwise, Gulf of Alaska, Panhandle, westward right out to the Kuskokwim Delta, Alaska Peninsula, all VFR. And IFR hung up along the northwest coast through the Bering Strait coast, covering the Bering Sea right on down to the Aleutians, marginal VFR in Alaska Island to False Pass. And for the Thursday morning outlook, big area of IFR from the Arctic coast there, extending southwestward, right across the western Brooks Range, Noatak Valley, in through the Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula IFR, and again, St. Lawrence Island, Pribilofs, and Atka Island westward to Shimei and Attu, eastern Aleutians, marginal VFR, and then VFR, Alaska Peninsula, right on up into the Yukon Delta and up the river valleys there to the border. Still some marginal VFR from the Talkeetna Mountains, eastern Alaska Range, upper Tanana Valley, down into the Wrangells, and VFR for the Panhandle, North Gulf Coast areas and Gulf of Alaska. Thursday afternoon, some marginal VFR starting to show up along the coast of Prince of Wales Island. Otherwise, the southeast areas stay VFR, North Gulf Coast VFR, right on up to the Brooks Range northward, marginal VFR in the North Slope, IFR, central western Arctic coast, and that area extends down into the northern and northwestern Bering Sea, eastward to about the St. Paul Island, and Attu Island is IFR. Rest of the Aleutians, marginal for the most part. Not too bad, though, for Unalaska Island and southern Alaska into the interior VFR. And at Tuvik tomorrow, VFR, both Brooks Range passes will be VFR in either approach. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. Rainy, same forecast, VFR. Windy, could start out marginal, but it'll be basically a VFR kind of day there. Isabel, occasionally marginal throughout the day. Mentesta, same forecast, could be some marginal VFR any time during the day tomorrow. VFR, though, or Tanita, good VFR, and Portage looking good as well, VFR there. Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels 6,000 to 8,000 feet over the eastern and central Bering Sea to the Aleutians, and 2,000 to 4,000 feet over the remainder of mainland Alaska, Gulf of Alaska, and the Panhandle. And icing, some catching the southern southeast coast there, rime icing, isolated, moderate rime icing between 5,000 to 12,000 feet. And another band way out west of some rime icing, higher up, you must get to about 8,000 feet, up around the freezing levels out there, 8,000 to 10,000 feet and up. And looks like another batch of moisture working its way onto the western Arctic coast. Could be some very isolated, moderate, possibly just an elevated threat there. And the jet stream, you can see westerly flow carrying that batch of moisture onto the western Arctic coast there. But too dry down over the Seward Peninsula with a stronger winds are about 75 knots coming over the top of that ridge that's finally moving eastward and will move right in over mainland Alaska on Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday time frame. So looking good into the weekend. Northerly flow 65 knots, Kodiak Island, and 9,000 feet. Westerlies at about 35 to 45 knots over the top of that high into the Seward Peninsula. Turn northerly over the Yukon Delta and diminish. Light variable winds everywhere else, 3,000 feet. West 30 knots there, Bering Strait coast, western Seward Peninsula. Southwest 25, Point Lay to Point Hope. And taking a look at turbulence, pretty smooth over much of mainland Alaska, even the Bering Sea and the Aleutians with light wind pattern. Increasing winds, though, southern southeast coast of that system bringing the moisture, and so could be some isolated moderate turbulence surface of 4,000 feet. And that same sort of pattern going on up over the Bering Strait coast to about Gambell, into Kivalina, Point Hope, and Point Ley. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
On March 11, 2011, a powerful tsunami hit Japan, destroying cities and villages. As the water receded back into the ocean, it pulled what remained of buildings, cars, boats, and homes along with it. Scrap metals, plastics, and objects of all shapes and sizes either sank near the shore or floated away. In the days that followed, large masses of floating debris could easily be seen by satellite imagery and aerial photos. In the wake of this disaster, NOAA is assessing the potential impact that the debris may have on U.S. shores. So, where will this debris go, and when will it get there? To help answer those questions, scientists are using computer models to estimate the debris' path, using its starting location in the tsunami zone and historical weather and ocean conditions. The findings are that some debris could pass near or wash ashore in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands as early as this winter. Debris may also approach the west coast of the United States in 2013 and potentially circle back to the main Hawaiian Islands in 2014. But scientists caution that there are limitations to what computer models can tell us, now that the debris has moved out of satellite view. And with currents and winds in the Pacific constantly changing, there is no guarantee that the debris will stay on the predicted path. Items will sink along the way, or break up and disperse in many directions. Despite these unknowns, NOAA and its partners are collecting data, assessing possible impacts, and making preparations in case debris does wash ashore. The 2011 tsunami in Japan reminds us that the devastation that happens on land can also become a marine debris issue at sea.
Imagine all of this underwater. In a major tsunami, it could happen. In this part of Washington state, it's happened before, hundreds of years ago. Sometime in the future, it will likely happen again. But we can be ready. If a tsunami strikes, this school will provide a place for people to ride it out above the waves.
We're in Westport, Washington, and right behind me is the very first tsunami vertical evacuation center in the United States.
This is an emergency. Please run to the nearest exit. Go to the stairs tower and proceed up the stairs.
Tsunamis are a potential hazard for low-lying coastal areas. That's why many coastal communities have plans in place to get people to safety, high ground or inland, where they can be beyond the reach of a tsunami. Often there are signs showing where to go and where to gather. Most tsunamis are caused by underwater earthquakes along subduction zones, where two of Earth's plates collide and one is forced under the other. Westport and other Pacific Northwest coastal communities are especially at risk because one of these zones lies just offshore. It's called the Cascadia Subduction Zone. An earthquake here caused a tsunami in 1700 that flooded shores as far away as Japan. Experts say it's just a matter of time before it happens again. Since the subduction zone is so close, a tsunami like the one in 1700 could strike before people in some low-lying areas could get to high ground or inland. And Westport doesn't have a lot of high ground or easy routes inland.
if we get an earthquake or a tsunami, we're going to get a lot of water in the area really quickly, and we needed a place to go. So our community built this brand new school, and above our gym and cafeteria, we have a roof. And so the idea is that we'll get all of our students up, and anybody from the community who needs to get up, they can get up there as well.
Ocosta Elementary School might seem like a normal school, but look more closely. It's engineered to withstand monster waves. Tsunami vertical evacuation shelters must be able to resist the powerful forces that a tsunami brings. Hydrodynamic, buoyant, hydrostatic, and debris impact forces and strong currents. They're also designed to help people get to safety quickly.
There are 4 big staircases on each corner of the building, and each one of those staircases is 8 feet wide, and we can get the whole school evacuated in about 4.5 minutes.
Everybody should be at a 0.
On the roof of the building, there is water and food and buckets and shelters and tarps and blankets and different things so that we can be up there for 2, 3, maybe 4 days while we wait for rescue.
You can go to the top and you know you'll be safe. It feels really nice to have a special building because you feel protected.
This community decided that a tsunami evacuation center was important because they didn't have anywhere to go, and they decided to use their money to build the building. The additional cost is anywhere between 10 and 20% of the actual building cost itself, and that's really a sound investment for a lot of protection. You may be there a while, but you're safe and you're secure, and that's the most important thing.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And on to marine forecasts for the south coast of the Panhandle there. East winds 30 knots. That's high enough for small craft advisories. Seas up to 12 feet. Northerly winds at 20 knots for the north coast with 7 to 9 foot seas. Lincoln Glacier Bay, north winds 20 knots. Stevens Passage, north at 15. And Clarence Strait, northwest winds 20 knots with 5 foot seas. And the outlook for Thursday. Winds coming down the south coast, still a little brisk, north to northwest, 20 to 25 knots, with seas down under 10 feet again, and north winds 15 to 20 knots on the north coast. Northern and central inside waters, north to northwest winds 15 knots, 3 foot seas, and Clarence Strait, northwest at 10. Prince William Sound, northwest winds 10 knots, seas 2 feet for Wednesday. Cook Inlet, variable winds, light and variable winds with slight seas, and northwest 20-knot winds for Kamishak Bay. Barren Islands, light westerly breeze at 15 knots, and the North Gulf Coast, variable winds 10 to 15 knots with 4 to 5 foot seas. Thursday, light variable winds for the North Gulf Coast with 4 foot seas, light variable winds for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay with 3 to 4 foot seas. Southern Cook Inlet, north at 15. Northern Cook Inlet, variable, 10 knots, seas 2 feet. And for Wednesday, Kodiak Island, west winds 15 knots, seas 5 feet. Bristol Bay, west winds 15 knots, seas just 2 feet. And the Alaska Peninsula, light variable winds with 3 foot seas. Outlook for Thursday, Alaska Peninsula, winds coming up, small craft advisories, east-northeast 25 to 30 knots, seas building to 8 to 14 feet. Bristol Bay, east winds 15 knots. Shelikof Strait, variable winds at 10 knots. Kodiak Island, south at 15. For the central and eastern Aleutians, actually from Amchitka Island, eastward to False Pass, light variable winds tomorrow. Pattern here I don't see too often. That many areas with that light variable wind at 10 knot forecast, with seas just running 2 to 3 feet across that part of the chain. And from Kiska to Shemya, southeast winds 15 knots. Northeast 15, Shemya to Kiska on Thursday. Elsewhere, winds pick up considerably. Northeast 20 from Amchitka Island. And small craft advisories for Adak and Atka, north winds 25 knots. Small craft advisories for the Fox Islands, northeast winds 30 knots, seas as high as 15 feet. And for the southwest coast, Kuskokwim Delta coast, northwest winds 15 knots. St. Lawrence Island, southwest at 15, Norton Sound west at 10. Otherwise, light variable winds for the Yukon Delta coast, St. Matthew Island, and the Pribilofs. And for Thursday, Norton Sound northeast at 10. South winds 15 knots for St. Lawrence Island, and for the Yukon Delta coast, winds will be northeast at 15 knots, northeast 20 knots for the Kuskokwim Delta coast. St. Paul and St. George, east winds 20 knots, seas 5 feet. St. Matthew Island, east winds 15 knots, seas at 2 feet. Central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, winds right out of the east tomorrow at about 20 knots on average. For the western Arctic coast, southeast at 20. Wales to Cape Beaufort, looking at southerly winds at 20 knots. And the outlook for Thursday, Wales to Cape Thompson, south winds 20 knots. Brisk wind advisories from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort for 25 knots southerly winds Thursday. Western Arctic coast south at 20 knots, and the central and eastern Arctic coast looking at southeast winds at 15 knots. For tonight, those flurries should end along the Arctic coast or taper off, may persist over from Barter Island and Kaparik areas, Kaktovik, into Mackenzie Bay, but for the most part, they should end elsewhere with just some areas of fog. Fair over interior Alaska, scattered showers, Prince William Sound up into the Copper River Basin, eastern Alaska range to maybe Eagle to the Wrangels, and showers southern and central southeast coast. High pressure over the Bering Sea, light variable winds, low clouds, fog, areas of drizzle with that, and that next front keeps it wet over the far western Aleutians through Wednesday, tomorrow. High pressure shifts eastward, really starts clearing out and starting to warm up the interior now, especially in the afternoon, with showers lingering from Eagle, upper Tanana Valley into the Copper River Basin, dry with partly and mostly sunny skies to the Panhandle. That continues into Thursday. Sunny and warmer over interior Alaska, south of the Brooks Range. Chance of snow or mixed precipitation along the Arctic coast and North Slope. And eastern Aleutians starting to come under the influence of a pretty big low to the south there. So look for some increase in the winds there with increasing chances of rain that stays unsettled for the far western Aleutians. Thank you for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.